If you have one of these, then you can make one of these. If you have one of those, you can make a handle like that one. But what is this? What is it called? And what does it do? And why would you need one? I call these a spar gauge. They come in all sorts of different sizes, and I'll tell you how it works in a minute, so stick with me. I've also heard them on the internet described as, I'm going to have to read this because it's an octagon-shaped liner. What? It's a spar gauge. What's it for? What was it originally used for? What does it do? Well, what it does is, if you've got a square piece of timber and you want to turn it into a round, the first thing you have to do is take the corners off. But the question comes in, how much do you take off the corners? Because you want to go from round to an octagon, which is what, an octagon. That's what this is. Sorry, I was getting confused with hexagons, but no, this is an octagon, 8-sided. Right, so the spar gauge will set you up for that, and you're thinking, hang on a minute, that spar gauge is too big. Well, all you do is turn it diagonally like that, and then it's exactly the right width for whatever you're marking. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how to make one of these. Then you get to make one of those. And then if you've got a lathe, you can upgrade it and create a handle like that. Now that's a London pattern, and it was used a lot in the UK. I don't know about the rest of the world. There's quite a bit more work in a handle like that, but it really is a thing of beauty by the time you've created one. Anyway, let's get into it. Okay, a spar gauge. It's all about ratios. I know this sounds boring, but stick with me. I'll do it in 30 seconds. What we want to do is create some distances. So what I'm going to say is, if those are our pins, the distance between them wants to be 1, 4, 1. But the distance between the guide pins on either side wants to equal 1. Those are ratios. Okay, 1.41 to 1. And you're thinking, how does that work? Just back to the blackboard for a minute, just to give you some measurements. If the one business there was actually a centimetre, and the one there was a centimetre, the middle bit would be 1.4 centimetres. We don't need to worry too much about the extra 1, because it's 1/10 of a millimetre. And that's so small in woodworking, you can forget about that altogether. So if we were setting that up, we'd have 10 millimetres, 14 millimetres, and 10 millimetres again. And that's what I'm going to mark out on my little block of wood. You need a small block of wood, a couple of chopped off nails, and a couple of panel pins. And this is how you make one. There we go. You can see that. So we've got 14 in the middle, so that would be 7 either side. So if I put that on 7, which I've got to admit is getting harder to see these days. Sorry, what am I talking about? Oh, yes, that's right. So there we go, and that would be 14. There we go. And while I'm at it, I want 10 either side. Either side of that line. And it's marking out, that's really important. Right, so there's our 14, and then there's 10 there and a 10 there. Now then, we're going to drill some holes, but here's the care, you've got to be careful. Those marks there, we're going to drill on those centres. But these marks, because we've got these thick nails, we can't drill them on the centre because that gap will be too small. So we want the edge of our pin to be on that edge. And these are 5.5mm nails. So I need to make sure that when I drill the holes, I end up with the hole there. So I'm going to be drilling about there in order to get the ratio correct. I'm going to go to the drill press and do that. You can do it with a hand drill, but you just need to probably put it in the vise and be very careful. If you do all your drilling from this side, you'll be fine because all those measurements will then be correct. But it is tricky. I'm not saying it isn't. A little bit tricky just to get that absolutely spot on. And I'm just going to guess the middle of that one. A quick tip for you as well. If you don't have a drill small enough, so it's going to drill a hole for these panel pins, simply take a panel pin and just snip the head off it, and you can use that, if you can see that, there you go, just use that as your drill, and it'll be exactly the right size. Right, so let's get on with drilling the holes. So the two smaller ones in the centre, the bigger ones I'm going to do on the drill press, so I'll come back to you in a second. We've now got a piece of timber with all the holes drilled into it, two small ones, two larger ones, and the gaps between them are the bit that's really crucial. What I am going to do now is just take all the sharp edges off this block, because you want it to run nice and smoothly over the other pieces of timber. So a little block plane, something like that, will do nicely for this sort of thing. What I'm going to do all the edges. Squeaky. Never mind. And yes, I could do the old rag in a can trick. This is a very tatty plane that's got rusty. It wants the base flattening. As you can see, it's been rusty and things was sat in a drawer and not used. And I just haven't got round to do anything with it. Right, so there we go, that's that done. We'll have a piece of, grab a bit of sandpaper and just sand it all over. Because we want this to glide over the timber. And it doesn't take much. I'm going to leave those marks, and I'm not going to sand it till the marks have vanished. It's not necessary. Just make sure that this side in particular has no bits that could snag. And then what I'm going to do with it is I'm just going to a tin opener. I'm going to put a little bit of wax on it because it just needs that. It'll seal the surface. You can see there. It's quick, it's easy, you don't have to fuss about with it. I mean, personally, you know, you can go as far as you want to with it. You can varnish it if you want. But what you actually need it to do is to glide over the surface of a piece of timber. That's what you need it to do. And then just give it a quick buff to remove any surplus. Right. that's that done. Now then, just grab a couple. Right, so that wants to, they want to come through from this side. I'm just going to grab a hammer. As you can see, even though we used a nail to drill the holes, it's still a nice tight fit. Just want them to come through. I can just feel one of them. And there we go. They're through. Make sure there's no wax around them. Can you see them? There you go. Just sticking through. Now then, we've got the spikes that way, but the actual cut off nails, and I'll actually put a little bevel on them so that they don't, from the hacksaw blade, just to smooth them off. Now these we want to go from the top like we did with the nails. I'm going to just leave it over the vise like that so that we don't move the nails, and then just tap these into position. I want these quite low down, not all the way. I'm going to go for that. It doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be exact. But there's some little ridges, I don't know if you can see them or not, on the nails, just there. And they will just help to grip into the timber. And that should, yeah, that looks pretty even. So there's our spar gauge. Now then, how do you use it?